Hello, everybody. It's the Historical Gamer, and I'm blanking on what I'm playing today. We're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition. It's been a little while. Granted, I guess we did just play one the other day, but we are returning to our Let's Play series, this time against our fresh opponent, Evoken, who was previously our logistics officer. It is May 7th? That was last turn, but maybe I just confused the two of our Let's Play, and the second turn for Evoken in charge of the Japanese here. You can see submarine activity off Peleliu, just to the northeast there. It looked like we had a hit but no explosion, I think, which the Mark 14 said, hey, listen, you know, it's been a little while since you've been playing, and I just want to make sure you remember me. So I'm absolutely trash, and don't worry, I'm still here, and I'm still absolutely terrible. So there you go. We're into the daylight phase here. The submarine activity at night is concluded, and we are moving into the naval operations phases here. We've got some submarine activity off the coast of Japan. It looks mostly like ASW ships trying to isolate and destroy us. He may remember kind of generally what he was thinking in terms of submarine placements. That was another thing that he managed. So we'll have to mix some things up a little bit to keep him off balance, so Evoken isn't able to leverage too much of the knowledge he has about us to his advantage. We're moving into the air operation phase here for the turn. We've got recon going on. It looks like some Japanese fighters sweeping over Batavia here against a handful of Dutch fighter aircraft rising up to fight them. We lost one, they lost nothing. 15-to-1 odds, you know, you'd kind of expect that. 36 Oscars are sweeping, or I guess bombing? Look like 7 escorting zeros and maybe 36 Oscars sweeping at 31,000 feet over some of our troops to the west here of the river in central China. Not sure what he has in mind there. He's not even adjacent to that hex, so I guess it could be more of a recon strike than anything. We've got some bombers here that are hitting the troops at Batavia here. We've got the Dutch force on Java completely surrounded at Batavia, and it looks like they're going to try and hit us here. It looks like a decent amount of flak damage done to some of these guys. They were coming in at 14,000 feet, so not too high of an altitude. They didn't get too many hits on the airfield or anything like that. I didn't see any casualties inflicted on the ground. Another bombing raid. There are 5 of them coming in, damaged. Quite a bit of flak damage, I think, if he's going to come in under 15,000 feet. That's a little bit risky, I think. And then he's also going to use some ANs here in central China. Interesting, again, that he's bombing those troops that are not really, as far as I can tell, near anything that is happening. So he may just be using China as a training area and places where he doesn't think fighter interceptors are likely, or maybe he's prepping the ground for eventually launching an attack on some of these locations here. He's also bombing Guilin and some sweeps again over central China. My hunch is this is mostly a training mission here, because he's kind of bombing all over without any real apparent logic to where he's hitting. Interesting that he's sending unescorted bombers over to Guiyang, though. We certainly could have ripped those up if we had some of our fighters locally tasked to deal with them. Another unescorted raid at Guilin. At that point, I'm wondering if the sweeps just got ahead of the raids or didn't always fly, because that seems, I don't feel like that's likely something he deliberately did. Okay, aircraft landing for the AM phase. It does say he got supplies to handle that kind of scattershot offensive. I mean, he thinks he's got sufficient, so I talked to him a little bit. I know some folks were commenting on the previous video, like, you know, Japan's economy is wrecked and whatnot, and he basically, I asked him, like, hey, I mean, is this a lost cause, or do you have a chance, or, you know, what do things look like? And he basically said, it is possible, based on the way the economy was set up from previous players, that Japan's economy could, and it's not a foregone conclusion, but could collapse. But what he also said is, listen, Japan has plenty of supply in the home islands right now. The economy, if it collapses, it's not going to be till late 44, so there's no reason not to play through this. And, you know, obviously he's going to try and fix it. But in any event, we've got a long road ahead of us before supply becomes a major issue for Japan, in his opinion. I think that's a reasonable thing for him to share without revealing too much, is that, like, hey, you know, it's not like I'm unable to play competitively for quite some time, and it gives him some time perhaps to fix some of that. Japanese submarine firing at some destroyers of ours near Sabi. That is interesting. We didn't get much. I would have hoped for the destroyers to do a little bit of damage, but that didn't really happen. Meanwhile, we've got battleships also adding to the bombardment at Batavia. It kind of makes me wonder if maybe he's going to launch an assault to try and wrap Batavia up sooner rather than later. But he's bringing battleships in to add to the bombardment here. He's also bringing destroyers in close. He destroyed a fair number of aircraft on the ground. We lost a B-17 on the ground. I believe that was already damaged. We lost some Catalinas. That kind of hurts a little bit. We'll have to see about pulling them out. About 500 troops were either disabled or destroyed. He also did a fair bit of damage to the base itself. We'll have to see what it looks like. I'm curious if he launches an assault or if it's just a bombardment to prepare for further bombardments. Okay, he is launching an assault. He's launching a deliberate attack at Batavia. Wow. Okay, this is a little bit earlier than I kind of expected. Obviously, we're going to lose Batavia at some point. But at this point, we might still be strong enough to throw him back with heavy casualties, so that would be pretty cool if we do. Let's go ahead and fast forward and see what happens here. I don't really know what to expect. He's got a fair number of divisions here. They seem to be dropping pretty considerably in terms of their assault value. Japanese engineers do reduce the fort, so he didn't get 2-to-1 assault. He didn't get 1-to-1 assault. The fort's at level 3. It said Japanese defenders or engineers reduce the fort. So I don't know if it's a 2. We'll have to take a look at that. Or if it was a 4 previously and they lowered it to a 3. I'm not actually sure. I thought it was only a 3 though. But you can see here the Japanese adjusted was about half of what the Allied defense was. And he lost a good deal of casualties here. 7,400 Japanese casualties to 2,300 Allied, 19 squads destroyed, 1 non-combatant, 7 engineer squads, and 26 guns, 1 of those destroyed. He also suffered 286 squads disabled, which will come in handy for us. Those will eat up supply to be repaired, but also it will limit his effectiveness in follow-on assaults, I assume. The defender has the advantage of terrain and forts. The attacker has no advantages. And you can see here 25 guns disabled as well. Meanwhile, we lost 15 squads destroyed, 244 disabled. So not quite, in terms of these casualties, it's 3-to-1. But if you look at the actual combat units, 19 destroyed versus 15, a little bit better than a 1-to-1. 286 disabled to 244. I think disabled squads are more effective on the defense than offense, so that may not be quite as close as it looks. The engineers lost is maybe a problem. 51 guns, a good deal of those are disabled. We've got plenty of supply that we should be able to successfully rebuild some of those units, but we're also going to be under constant bombardment, so we'll see. Yeah, hopefully the defenses at Batavia can delay a reckoning long enough to commit a reckoning, huh? Either way, he did not cheaply take Batavia, and those divisions are going to need some time to rest and recuperate. Those destroyed numbers weren't high enough to be like a disaster for him, because disabled units do recover, but it does take time. And time is something that Japan in 1942 and mid-1942 doesn't have a lot of in terms of like getting cheap victories and continuing to push forward. So that's good. That's probably the highlight of this turn, I would guess, is the defense of Batavia. It looks like we've got some squads and aircraft and units arriving, and we're moving to the conclusion of the turn. So let's go ahead and price of a mile, I think is what he said. So yeah, that's I'm guessing that's like a World War I reference almost. The base is definitely wrecked, P. Warner. You can see the port damage is at 50, airfield damage is at 69, runway damage is at 51, so quite a bit of damage. I'm not sure if it was from the battle or the ground combat, or sorry, the bombardment. We have 64 light industry, of which I believe 16 have been disabled. So that's, almost a quarter of the light industry has been destroyed. They produce supply. Heavy industry is mostly okay. I think the parentheses number is the number that is currently disabled, right? Not the number that's currently working. Or is it reversed? I'm not sure. I'd have to take a look at the manual. But I believe that means 1 out of 39 are disabled. 10 out of 50 resources are disabled, so that will hurt supply. Manpower is not disabled at all. If we go back, let's take a look. We can probably answer that by looking at Pearl. Let's go ahead and look at Pearl. Yeah, the parentheses number is the number disabled. Okay. So yeah, that's going to hurt the production efficiency of Batavia, and it's also going to mean he's going to have to commit resources to repairing stuff. We did lose a fair amount of our assault value. It looks like we lost about 300 of our assault value. I think we were around 1,100 before the attack, and now we're down to 800. We still have the 4th K&L Regiment as our best unit here, and that unit is in very good shape still. The 8th Australian Division, we did bring elements of this division in to defend Batavia as well. I forget when we brought them in. They're not, are they part of the Desert Rats? I can't even remember bringing these guys in. I know we sent a division to, Burma of the crack troops. And then I can't remember what we sent to Australia. I think we sent one of them to Australia. I don't think the 8th was the other crack division. We also sent the Americal division to the U.S. Probably find out more quickly if we take a look here. Ground units. Filter out. Well, actually, that'll be more difficult because we'll have to. Do I have Australia as a separate? We do. The 8th was one of the crack divisions? Well, damn. We sent the whole thing to frickin' Batavia? I don't remember doing that. That was a while ago. I really don't remember sending a crack division to Batavia. When the hell did we do that? Okay. The 7th is in Mulmine. They're one of the crack divisions. Oh, no, we didn't. They're not the crack division. The crack division is the 6th. The 6th and the 7th. Were the Desert Rat divisions or whatever brought from North Africa. 72 experience, and they're currently sitting in Australia. Safe and happy as a clam. The other crack division is the 8th, which is at Mulmine, which participated in that counteroffensive of ours here. They're not quite as good. 59 experience. But they're currently digging at Mulmine. They've got level 4 forts. What did we... So Batavia chewed through about 20,000 supply in the last few turns. Yeah, the 8th was the formations that were detailed to defend Singapore. Good call, Sean Mack. So those were troops that we pulled out of Singapore during the evacuation. That's also why the division is so small. It's at about 1/3 of its potential strength. But you can see here the forts are at 3, building to 0, so they were reduced. Be interesting to see if he tries again, because the engineers did reduce the fortifications, but they also lost such heavy casualties that I wouldn't be surprised if they need a little bit of time to recover from that. Rangoon is at level 6 forts, almost to 7, or no, that's airfield. Sorry, 3, almost to 4. Also working on building up the fortifications at Mulmine, which are at 2, almost to 3. They'll probably get to 3 this turn. We've got 140 engineers and 6 engineer vehicles, so I think we're going to turn Mulmine into a fortress pretty quickly. 3. The nice thing about the Western Allies is their engineering equipment. Like, we've got 13 engineering vehicles at Rangoon. When you just have engineers but no equipment, it's like the situation in China where anything above like level 2 forts is just a snail's pace. But when you've actually got quality equipment there, then things move much more quickly. Yeah, I'm curious about his sweeping and bombing over central China here. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose is, because he's got to go through multiple lines of troops to get there. And in fact, a lot of those troops are in tough terrain and they're building fortifications in the open, like these guys here and these guys here. So he's going to have to drive through like 90 miles of defended terrain before he even gets to Chikigang, which is a level 5 fort and working on level 6. So like that's a fortress in of itself. Quilin makes sense because he's only got 1 force in front of it. And if he breaks through there, he may want to try and move quickly. He probably also wants to delay us building our forts up. They're at level 3 at the moment, but he certainly wants to delay us getting them to 4. We don't have that many troops here. This is actually a really good division for the Chinese. The 66th division has 50 experience. We're trying to give them replacements and new equipment. You're likely using Chinese infantry as advanced training for the boys. The Chinese troops that he's bombing, yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is I would bomb somewhere else. But hey, that's just me. Those guys moving southeast. He didn't bombard again out of Uruguay. It claims these guys are moving southeast, but I think that just means some of these guys moved in here. He's also got, according to this, he's got APDs, but those could be destroyers as well. See if he drives forward and tries to bombard Pegu. I want to get those forts up at Pegu and Rangoon as much as we can because that will limit the effectiveness of naval bombardments. What else did we have this turn? So looks like in terms of aircraft, we lost 1 in the air, 2 on the field, 1 via flak, so 4 aircraft total. This claims he lost 6. 4 of those op losses were probably damaged by flak. No aircraft lost more than 1. What do we have here at Batavia? If he is launching those ground attacks at Batavia, I think it makes sense to withdraw the squadron. So we've got 1 fighter left with 8 pilots, including 1 guy with 7 kills, Van Harlem. So we're going to go ahead and withdraw this group for 60 days. So they will reform. We'll withdraw the B-7. Oh, I can't withdraw the B-17s here. I guess we'll let them try and repair, and if they do, we'll pull them out. These Dutch patrol aircraft may be useful. I don't think it's likely the base falls next turn, so I suppose we could leave the Dutch Catalinas in place. Like, it hurts that we lose some Catalinas, but they're also Dutch squadrons that we can't do anything with, and it looks like the aircraft are from the Dutch pool as well, so again, they don't influence our ability to keep our American squadrons up to strength. I don't have anywhere else in the Dutch East Indies to fly them where they can operate out of, where they'd have supply and support, because the Dutch East Indies have pretty much been bypassed and destroyed. The Prahota garrison might be interesting if we could pull those guys out. I don't think we can pull a considerable amount out, but honestly, the naval search isn't doing me anything, so maybe we would actually be better at troop transport. Setting the destination to this base, because those guys are just on an island with no supply. And see if we can pick up their Prahota garrison. The airfield destruction doesn't even matter because they're not aircraft that require the airfield. It might influence like supplies and stuff like that. The reason, I mean, I don't know that this will make any difference at all, but like just in theory, the fact that we'll be, you know, getting a few more troops, who knows? That could be the difference. You never know. A few troops could be the difference in a single attack. 20 or 30 AV could be the difference in a single attack between it going like 2-to-1 odds or 1-to-1 odds or 1-to-2 odds. You never really know. Okay. Let's drop these guys out of training. There's no real reason to have them set to training, frankly, or naval search. What good are they going to do on naval search? They're going to tell us that ships are there? Well, I don't really have any subs operating in the area, so what good is that going to do me? I mean, I guess it could show me ships transiting to different locations, which I suppose would be important. I suppose. Whatever. We do have PGs here. DMS is here. It would be nice if they like picked up the enemy carriers or something. I can't use torpedoes on the... I don't think the Dutch ones carry torpedoes. The American Catalinas carry torpedoes. But the Dutch ones just carry bombs. So again, less effective as a naval attack weapon because they don't carry torpedoes when they're in the Dutch service. Otherwise, I would. All right. I did order one of these convoys south to Rangoon. We're going to set them at full speed. They're going to burn through a lot of fuel, but Rangoon has fuel to spare. We might also put a cap up over them too. All right, so they're going to move at 3 per turn, I think. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So they will not be at Rangoon this turn, but by moving them at flank speed, they will be within range of Rangoon next turn. There's no discovery level over them, so he does not know that they are here. That's good. These guys are pulling to Calcutta. These supply are on the way to Rangoon as well. They're low on fuel. Oh, they're not. If we set the home base to Rangoon, can we set them to flank? Oh, they'll burn through all their fuel. Rangoon does have sufficient fuel. It produces fuel, so it turns resources into fuel based on its base here. So you can see it has 32,000 fuel, which I'm always happy to take fuel and use it that the enemy doesn't get to use. I also was looking at putting more ships in to do their refits. So Detroit will be done with its refit in 2 days. Trying to see, I think we sent some other ships that are already in port, but I don't think they've arrived yet. I think I'm sending some like shipping up that were with the carriers to Colombo and other places like Calcutta to do their refits. But I might look at pulling the carriers out of Bombay and moving them back toward the U.S. Actually, to that end, we are moving 2 carriers, or the Lexington and the Saratoga, which are both overdue for upgrades. We're moving them to Cape Town. This may be a gradual shift of moving the carriers back to the U.S. West Coast. We've kept them in the Indian Ocean, and I plan to keep some of them there for a little while, because we do have a considerable amount of soldiers that are going to be transiting the area before too long. We've got like 80,000 American troops coming into the region in the next month. So I don't want to have no ships there, mainly because like if I move them in from Colombo into India, even if I move them way north here, I do probably want a screening force just in case he gets a little bit aggressive. So, you know, we'll leave some carriers to screen them there, but I'm pulling the Saratoga and the Lexington back because they're overdue for upgrades that will make them much more efficient on the defensive. And because we have a British carrier group, which will at least in theory help replace one of their fighter squadrons here with their Martlet 2s. Not as good of a striking carrier, but 24 Martlet 2s. If you compare that to what the American carriers have in their fighter wings, we can take a look here and look at like Lexington. It has fewer than that number of F4Fs. So like in that case, we're actually replacing more than one of the carrier's fighter wings. The Lexington or the Saratoga has 27, but you can see that. So we're replacing one of the carrier's fighter wings. From a purely defensive perspective, those fighters are what matters. Yes, Alka, we did carry over the supply gift to Evoken, so we didn't get rid of that. He still has access to that. That should help his economy as well. Watching this game makes you want to play it and then boot it up and you remember why you don't play it. It is a lot, right? Like it's one of those games where I feel like this series makes me want to play it, but then the idea of starting a new game is kind of like, I don't know that I want to go back and do the December 7th or 8th turn. It feels like a little bit much. So I'm happy that Evoken wanted to pick things up and play from where we're at, because frankly, December for the Allies is not a lot of fun. I'll just be totally honest. I'm sure it's a lot of fun for the Japanese. They can do whatever they want, but for the Allies, December is not a lot of fun. All right, so you can see our invasion task force from the Midway offensive is pulling back to Pearl Harbor. So the Hornet is almost back. She's burned through more than 3/4, well, not quite 3/4 of her available sorties. So she's going to replenish her air wings there. Our pilots got some good experience flying off the carrier in combat situations. The bombers got to drop some bombs. The fighters got to run some escort and cap. So that's good experience for the Hornet, which is on the map now. I believe our battleships have already pulled back. You can see the big boys here. They've already replenished their fuel stocks. Thirsty bastards. Midway is ours. We are working very slowly on repairing stuff. The port is still 100% offline. The airfield service areas are completely cratered, but the airfield runway is up to 96%, 86% damage. So we're making progress there with the 8 engineers and 4 vehicles. So there's like 4 bulldozers on the island and like 8 dudes with 4 bulldozers. That's like the most American thing ever. Just be like, we've got more equipment than we know what to do with. But I imagine these guys are just like looking around a cratered landscape like, what the fuck do we do? But yeah. WPP, is that Warplan Pacific in ours? I need to give that game a look. I played a little bit of the original Warplan and I was a little underwhelmed about how naval units were represented. It felt a little too abstract, which I guess for a European only game that's fine, like if all you're looking at is the North Atlantic. But I had reservations of how that would translate to the Pacific. Like, would it feel right? And so I never really got into it. But my great grandfather was a CB, Hellfish, in World War I. And then my great uncle, was that what the brother of your grandfather is? Was a CB in Korea, actually. My grandfather was a doctor on the USS Oklahoma City, the light cruiser, Cleveland class. I've got some Japanese money at our family's at their old house, which is now are sort of split between my aunts and uncles and whatnot. All right, so let's see here. We're still unloading some of our coastal units here. What's the supply situation? We're at like 1,000. Hopefully that's enough to repair all the damage. We're gonna have to get more supplies in there. There are some Japanese submarines moving around in here, so we'll have to look at that. These guys are, what are these? The DMSs? We should probably pull these guys back to Pearl. There's no reason to keep these guys here. They're just going to get themselves torpedoed, and I don't need to lose troop transports. I don't have enough of them to begin with. Let's also use a waypoint here to route these guys just a little bit north of Midway to try and keep them out of the Japanese submarines that we know exist down here. And then we've got a patrol boat and an AFV in Kerr Island. I may pull all of them to Midway. The problem with Midway is its port capacity is too low to actually keep submarines out of port. So in theory, they can torpedo ships at anchor. I believe you have to get your port level up to 3 to have a protected anchorage, which we should do anyway, because it would be nice to be able to use Midway as sort of a stopover point. Put some tenders in Midway and use it as a stopover point for submarines. That would cut probably at least 2 to 3 days off, maybe more, of any subs transiting to Japan. And that would, 2 to 3 days each way. Like, that's a week of time right there that your subs gain either on patrol or at least are able to get back out to sea more quickly. Now, obviously, major damage, they'd still have to go back to Pearl. But at least for minor damage, that's probably something we should look at doing. Interesting, hell. All right. Yeah, Midway's nice and small, which allows us to fix it up more quickly. We also did see he put a sub into Savi, which is supplies are low as well, and the damage there is pretty heavy. We recently took that back. We've got the 8th Marine Regiment here that is in position there. We've got these amphibious boys are unloading supplies. That's probably what he was trying to go for, this task force here, which is more vulnerable and trying to get rid of those 400 supply. We've also got a sub at Savi. We should go ahead and return to Pago. There's no reason for them to be there. There's no enemy shipping there. And we've got a single destroyer. Does it have any depth charges left? It does. So maybe we would switch these guys over to an ASW task force, and maybe we can just see if they'll drop some depth charges on that lone Japanese submarine. How are the other bases here on the Savi line doing? Level 2 airfield at Tongatapu. Level 2 fortifications. That's nice. Vavu, level 2 airfield. These airfields are really important because they are in range of Pago and they're in range of Suva, but they're not in. But Pago and Suva are not in range of each other for fighter aircraft. So it allows us to sort of leapfrog fighters back and forth between Suva and Pago. And we have a fair number of aircraft here. The B-17s can fly right off, and the B-26s can. But like the P-40Es, they might... yeah, they might. They'll be able to transit. But I think we have some P-40Bs here as well. Somewhere. Somewhere. Yeah, here they are. We've got 2 squadrons of P-40Bs, a total of 40 of them, plus 13 in reserve. And I don't believe these guys aren't fitted for drop tanks, and so their transit range is less than, it's 17 hexes over here. I don't believe they can transit to Pago. So that allows us to move these guys via Vavu if we need to. But you can see Savi has 40 P-40Bs and 18 F-4F Wildcats for a total air wing of about 58 fighters. Meanwhile, at Pago, we've got an additional 23 P-40Es. So between the 58 on Savi and then the 23 on Pago, we've got enough fighter aircraft to counter about 3 enemy carriers, roughly, in terms of their fighter strength. So, you know, obviously that's something, but that's only if we can concentrate them, and that's what these bases allow us to do. Pago is definitely kind of a supply base. Savi had been taken by the Japanese. We just retook it. So we're really kind of coming up at the tail end of a major counteroffensive by the Allies. Savi had been Japanese. We just retook it. Canton is still Japanese, but Baker Island had been Japanese, and we retook that. And we also retook Midway, which had been Japanese. So I like to think of this kind of as like an early spring counteroffensive. Major counteroffensive in the sense that nothing was larger than a regiment that fought. The 8th Marine Regiment is what took Savi. A battalion, a couple of battalions, I believe here. So basically like 3/4 of an infantry regiment retook Midway. And then Baker was just a shoestring operation, a Marine Defense Battalion, a couple hundred troops. We had about double the number of combat troops here, but either way, it was like 500 or so total soldiers participated there. But over the span of a couple of weeks, we retook those 3 bases and helped iron out our slack. We did lose Espiritu Santos and the island group around here, as well as New Caledonia. So the enemy still will be able to push air attacks well into our preferred supply line to Australia from the US's west coast. But it's kind of only at the very tail end. So like these guys can kind of transit through to Pago and then shift south once they get to Fiji. The fact that we retook Savi here really prevented them from pushing too far south with any kind of float planes of being aware there. I'd like to take Canton as well to let me take a more direct route from Palmyra. But I think Canton is somewhat isolated in its current place, and we've also pushed some float planes out to Baker that'll kind of help us keep an eye on what's here. It doesn't seem like there's any enemy float planes operating out of Canton, so it doesn't feel like our supply lines are pinched too much until you get to New Caledonia. Yeah, I mean, the Japanese could try to exploit New Caledonia. The primary problem with New Caledonia for the Japanese is it is so far south. There's 2 problems here. Even though they took Espiritu Santos, this is a very narrow line that they can advance supplies down. Like it is, they can't go east, or they can't go west, and they can't go east without running into major allied bases. So they've got a very narrow line that they can move supplies through without being interdicted, and that allows us to place submarines in these places as well to kind of make this a more perilous journey. The other problem, and this is the core problem, is that New Caledonia is so far south that it takes a ton of supplies and fuel and other things like that to get all the way down to New Caledonia. It is not an efficient place for Japan to stage out of. So, like, it's a great base in theory, but Japan's logistics, their merchant marine, it is at the very end of a very long tether. The Solomon Islands are difficult enough for Japan to sustain an offensive out of. New Caledonia is even worse. And so realistically, if the Japanese are going to make any sort of thrust against Australia, I think it would come probably out of Rabaul and Moresby, and they would try and land up near Cairns and Townsville and push down along the rail lines. They might do some harassing attacks out of New Caledonia, but I just don't see them being able to sustain any kind of major operations out of there over any kind of extended period of time. He bombed the Hoover Dam with flour. That's pretty neat, Delta. I've got a B7. Well, it's not strictly a B-17 compass. I forget. It's like a D. Oh, I forget the military designation, but it is a compass that was in multiple bombers. It was on the 24, the 17, I think the 26, the version of the compass. I don't think it was in every B-17 model though, so I'm not really sure. But I do have a compass on my a navigation compass on my bookshelf from those aircraft. What else? I don't know that there's a lot else to show off. This was an eventful turn at Batavia. We held off against that Japanese attack. They did reduce the forts, which could put us in some danger, but they also took so many losses. I don't see them counter launching another attack immediately. The Philippines were in rough shape. We do have those troops at Clark Field, but we are under 2,000 supply. These guys are rapidly starving. So I don't know if they're yet to the spot where if the enemy attacks us, we'll completely collapse. I think our assault value's fallen by about 200 to 300. Some of these troops have no supply at all, so we're beginning to lose efficiency out of these combat units. 1,800 there. There's nothing really left at Bataan for us to fall back to. The terrain is better for defensive at Clark Field, actually, so that's kind of one reason we kept them pushed forward. The troops do have pretty good defenses here, so like the constabulary has level 3 forts, so the defenses are pretty strong there. It would actually, the terrain bonuses at Clark make defending there better than withdrawing to Bataan at 4. But yeah, situation in China is unchanged. I don't see any immediate indications of the Japanese launching an offensive. Maybe these guys are moving south out of Xiaoyang, but I don't see a lot of enemy movement yet. Nothing that we can see here in Burma. I think we can predict a major enemy offensive toward Burma soon or in the near future. That's what I would do. He's got to take Burma. He needs the fuel, the supplies that the bases generate there. He also, frankly, just needs to push us back, because if he doesn't, B-17s out of Mole Mine can definitely hit Bangkok, which is a place with a not zero amount of industry. They also have some refining capability, so they produce supply and fuel. And then it also puts us within range of some of, let's see, I think we get up to 17 hexes, so not quite. Well, let's take a look. Where did we even pull our B-17s back to? B-17Ds have a range of 17 for normal and 22 for extended. So, in theory, if we were able to base bombers out of Mole Mine, 22 hexes would put Medan in range, which is one of the most important oil-producing hexes for the Japanese. So, he obviously does not want that. And later war stuff, it would even put Palembang in the range of like B-29s. Now, obviously, that's a ways out. At least I think it would put Palembang out in range. But a 200 oil production facility at Medan, that is very important for him, as well as a refinery. He cannot afford to let us bomb that, which in theory we could out of Mole Mine. So I think that's going to be a major objective for him, is to retake Burma or take Burma and push us back there. Any indication of the Kido Butai? The last time we saw the Japanese carriers was about a week ago, I believe, at Singapore. We saw all of them. We put a torpedo into the Hiryu. Actually, 2 torpedoes into the Hiryu. Now, it was in the Singapore hex. We never got a blub, 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 blub noise effect, meaning anything sank. I don't think we sank it. We put one of the smaller Dutch torpedoes and one of the larger Dutch torpedoes into it. Probably knocked it out of commission for a month or two. Maybe it was a little more than a week ago that we saw that. It might have been like 2 weeks ago. It was in April and sometime. So I'm assuming the Hiryu is still being repaired, which temporarily weakens the Japanese carrier fleet. But that's the last time we saw the Japanese carriers. We do have an indication that the port still has a ton of shipping, over 300 ships, potentially with carriers being sighted. So I don't have a reason to think they moved them. And in fact, he may have used that time to get their system damage and other things like that down. So they may be doing some minor repair or refit work in Singapore. We also, as a reminder, are working on repairing the Prince of Wales. She was not sunk. In 2 days, she will make sail for England, jolly old England, to try and make more efficient repairs back home. The system damage is down to 3. The cruise speed is still only sitting at 1 hex a turn, which is really grates on me a bit because I need her to get back faster. Her repair time was like a little less than a year, and it was one of those things where if we can make 2 hexes per phase, then she will get back to England in a way that even with the transit time will save like over a month in repair time because of the efficiency of the English yards. However, if she's moving at 1 hex, then the amount of time it's going to take her to get there, you know, might end up causing us not to gain anything. Like it's kind of a push in terms of whether we should leave her at Cape Town or not. But pulling her out of Cape Town does open up those nearer docks for other kind of refits and other things like that, which is why we're doing it. Repulse is on the way back as a reminder with the British carrier. She was repaired as well. Repulse is in good shape. On the way back with the British carrier to the Indian Ocean. I don't think I have anything else to share with you guys. A busy yet quiet turn, if that makes sense. The Battle of Batavia went our way. Long term, we can't win there, but short term, any damage and casualties we can inflict on the Japanese are gravy. So I'm happy with that. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for today's episode of War in the Pacific, our Let's Play series against Evoken. This is episode number 155, and I suppose we'd call it the Battle of Batavia, at least the beginning of the Battle of Batavia, because we successfully held off a large-scale Japanese assault. A seemingly quiet turn otherwise, a major battle in Java went our way. It wasn't without setback. The reduction of the fort isn't a great thing, but it is something that is inevitable. So the fact that we took 7,000 Japanese soldiers with us, I think is probably a much better outcome than if he had spent the next 2 weeks gradually grinding us down and forcing us to surrender. Because the way this game works, when you get an overwhelming advantage, you can really quickly and very lopsidedly reduce an enemy fort to nothingness and force their surrender. Fortunately, he tried to end things early, and that gave us a bit of a victory. It's nothing that'll change the strategic picture, but it's a nice victory nonetheless. In any event, that's going to do it for today's episode of War in the Pacific. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave your thoughts down below. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out. Bye-bye. No, really, I mean bye.